Hey guys, and welcome to the video. So today I have a question and answer session for you. So last week I gave you the chance to submit any burning weight loss questions you have. And so today I'm going to be answering 12 of those questions, which I have written down here on my phone. So I'm just going to summarize each question. I'm not going to read each one out fully. So let's get into it. So the first question is, if I'm in a calorie deficit, so eating less than my body needs, does it matter whether the calories come from fat or carbs, carbohydrates? And the simple answer to that is usually no. It doesn't matter whether the calories are coming from fat or carbs, because you are in a calorie deficit. And as long as you are in a calorie deficit, your body is needing to get the calories from somewhere, right? So if you're in a calorie surplus or maintenance, then your body is getting the calories from the food you're eating. If you're in a calorie deficit, it means you're not eating enough to sustain your body. And that's how we lose fat. So the energy comes from your body instead of the food. So when your body needs energy, when you're in a calorie deficit, it's either going to be taking it from the fat stores or from your carb stores. If it's taking from your carb stores, then at some point, you are going to be needing to restore those carb stores. And one of the ways it does that is by burning body fat to restore those. So either way, it's always going to come down to burning fat and losing body weight if you're in a calorie deficit. And just on a side note, a lot of people think if they're eating higher fat, they will be burning fat. But yes, of course, because that's the fuel source you're giving your body. It still depends on being in a calorie deficit, because just because you're eating fat doesn't mean your body is burning body fat. You'll be burning the fat that you're eating if you're still eating too much, right? So if you're eating 10,000 calories of fat in a day, you're not going to be losing weight because you won't be in a calorie deficit. You'll be burning fat because that's what you're giving your body, but it's the dietary fat rather than the body fat that you will be burning, if that makes sense. So what I would usually advise people to do is go more on the carbohydrate side, of course eating enough protein as well, and include enough fats in your diet. So I usually tell people 1.5 thumb of fat with each meal. And if you want a specific calculation for fat, never go below 0.5 times your body weight in kilograms of fat in a day. So for example, if you weigh 70 kilograms times 0.5, you don't want to go below 35 grams of fat. And that's an absolute minimum. Like, that's very low fat. So you generally want about 0.75 times your body weight in kilograms. So I hope that helps. So next question is, can I lose weight by exercise alone? And so this is probably something you've heard of before. You can't out-exercise a bad diet, but that doesn't mean that you can't just use exercise to lose weight. However, it's not really advised because it's going to be extremely difficult, because it's easier not to do something than to do something. So what I mean by that is it's easier to not eat more food than to do more exercise. So for example, let's say in your busy day, it's easier to kind of plan to not eat so much than to plan to do an exercise session. Because what happens if you have a busy day and you don't have time, or something happens, or you're extra tired and you can't fit that exercise session in, you've kind of gone off track then. Whereas the food, you're not doing something, you're not eating. So it's easier to, like when you're busy, it's easier to not do something, right? And I like to just explain this with some glasses of water. So as you know, to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. So that means eating fewer calories than your body needs. So I'm gonna explain that with a glass of water. So let's say this glass represents the amount of calories you need per day. Let's just put a number in it. I'm gonna make a number up. So I'm gonna say you need 1,500 calories to maintain your weight. And so to lose any weight, you have to be eating underneath that amount. So if I fill that glass up to the top, when you eat to the top, that's like 1,500 calories, and you maintain your weight. Now, to lose any weight, you have to be eating under that amount. So we tip it out. So let's say that's 1,300 now. And so because you're not eating to how much your body needs, that needs to come from somewhere, right? So it's not coming from your food, so it needs to come from your body's fat stores. So the way your body gets that back up to the total 1,500 that you need, it doesn't take it from the food because it's not there, it takes it from your body fat, and that's how you lose weight. Now, what can happen with exercise is, let's say that 1,500 again, total. So again, you need 1,500 to lose weight. And what exercise does is, you need 1,500 to maintain your weight. What exercise does is that increases the need for energy. So you need more. So have a bigger glass. So that 1,500, which before was enough to maintain your weight, if we tip it into the bigger glass, bigger energy need, we now have a gap because we need more energy in the day. So what exercise is doing, exercise and movement, is increasing your energy needs for the day. So you're still eating the same amount, but you're now not eating enough because you need more. And so the same thing happens, that needs to come from somewhere. It's not coming from your food, so it has to come from your body fat stores. So that is filled up to the top with your body fat, and that's how you lose weight. So it all comes down to how much you're eating, input, and how much you're moving, output. And it's the balance between those things. So you have to get those right to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. Now, if you're eating too much, then you're not going to lose weight even if you're exercising a lot. And also, you have to consider a lot of things. So actual exercise sometimes makes people tired throughout the day. So you might move around less in your overall day. And so your exercise session might actually make you burn fewer calories in the rest of the day, which obviously is not a good thing because you're doing an exercise session to lose weight, to help you burn calories. But because of it, there's a possibility that you might burn fewer calories in the rest of your day and end up, let's say, basically negating the whole point of doing that exercise. So what I would usually advise is a bit of both. So reducing your calories a bit and doing a bit of movement and exercise in your day or in your week. So you get a bit of both and you get the benefits of doing the exercise, get the benefits of not eating too little because you want to be able to still enjoy food and eat enough. So getting a bit of exercise in enables you to be kind of in the middle of these two things. So you don't have to reduce your calories too much and you don't have to do too much exercise. So it gives you the best of both worlds. So I hope that answers your question. Right, so next question is, I have an underactive thyroid, I exercise and I hardly eat, I'm struggling to lose weight. So first of all, my first question would be, what do you mean by struggling? So in terms of, are you losing some weight? Are you consistently not losing weight? Are you losing weight some weeks not? So it's important to understand that question. But also, firstly as well, underactive thyroid is a medical problem. So essentially you need to be medicated by your doctor. So that's the first thing. If you are not medicated, I'm assuming you should be, considering that you know that you have an underactive thyroid. So the medication needs to be on point to make sure your metabolism is working correctly. So that's the very first thing you need to do. And otherwise it makes the whole process much more difficult. And so it's difficult to answer this question because there's lots of different parts, but that would be the first advice. The second advice would be that exercise, how much exercise are you doing? How consistently are you doing? And hardly eating, how consistently are you hardly eating? Are you hardly eating some days and then overeating on other days? Are you snacking a lot? Are you emotionally eating? What are your total 7-day, 24-hour-a-day eating habits? Because it's very easy to focus on when you're not eating and forget about all the snacking in between, or maybe the one day where you eat more. So it all comes down to how much you're eating over the whole week. Because essentially, even if you have an underactive thyroid, it still comes down to the basic principle of you need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. So when I work with clients, that's one of the things that is something we can work on, because it's all about feedback of what do we need to look at, what do we need to change. Week 1, what do we change? Week 2, has it worked? If yes, great. If no, what else can we change? So it's kind of like guiding you through the obstacles to get that weight loss going. So I know like that's a difficult question to answer without speaking to you directly and knowing the answer to all those things. And obviously the doctor's influence as well. But I hope you sort of understand, like when you ask questions, it's very important to be specific with certain things like that, so we can get more detail. And it is all about feedback and knowing that yes, it's a disadvantage, but you can be medicated properly, and it does come down to the basic principles of weight loss like everyone else. So it's not impossible. If you do want help, feel free to reach out, and yeah, I hope that answers your question at least a little bit. So next question, my willpower is terrible and I can't lose weight. So this is a common thing I hear all the time, the willpower doesn't work, and that is absolutely correct. Like willpower is not meant to be 100% all the time. So what your willpower is your basically conscious thought, and your brain is designed to only be able to consciously think for short periods of time. And it's just like studying or learning something new. You can't do it for very long before you get tired. And so when we think about willpower, we need to be thinking about it in two ways. The willpower you use to learn new things around your diet, but also the willpower you use to control your eating. So I'll start with the first one first. So willpower around learning new things. So part of losing weight is learning skills around food, how to eat, when to eat, what to eat. And that can use willpower because it's your conscious effort, you're learning something, and you don't need to be doing it all the time. It's sort of sitting down and thinking about it and putting those skills into practice. So you can use willpower, and it's not something you have to keep maintained 24 hours a day. Now, willpower for stopping things and controlling yourself around food is very different. And this is what most people tend to slip up on because they think that they should have willpower. And of course, willpower is a finite thing, so it shouldn't last for the whole day, and putting it into use is always going to fail. So the first thing to understand with willpower is something called away from thinking. So when you say, I don't want to eat chocolate, or I don't want to feel this way, I don't want to lose control, I don't want my life to be like this, these are what we call away from sentences. So it's what you don't want. And our unconscious mind, so the part of the mind that runs in the background, it doesn't process negative instructions. So when you say you don't want something, like I don't want to eat chocolate, you have to think of chocolate because it doesn't process the don't part. So if I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant, for example, what comes into your mind? A pink elephant. The same thing with things like chocolate, wine, all those things, cake, even the feeling, I don't want to feel like this, I don't want to be like this. You have to imagine that. And when we combine that with what we call mental rehearsal, so mental rehearsal is what actors or sports players do. They kind of imagine doing something before they've done it. So an actor would imagine going over their lines and it makes them better. A sports player would imagine kicking a ball or swinging a racket and it makes them better. So it's the imagination process. So what you're doing the whole time with willpower, for example, chocolate, don't eat chocolate, I don't want to eat chocolate, I'm not going to eat chocolate. You're practicing that in your mind because you have to think about it to not think about it or to not do it. And basically when that willpower runs out, when you get tired of doing that, what happens? You have a complete sort of relapse and end up emotionally eating and binging on it. So when your willpower does run out, when you get tired, what happens? You binge, you have that emotional session and you basically, fall off the wagon. And so that is why it's very important not to use willpower to control your eating and control what you don't want. So willpower is quite a big topic, but the basic gist of it is you need to do the opposite. You need to be very aware of what you do want. So instead of not wanting to, or basically to not want to eat chocolate, what do you want instead? I want to eat a nice, healthy diet that makes me feel nourished and basically happy. But it's a lot more to it than that. But it's about how you focus to start with your mind. Because like I said, if you're focusing constantly on these things you don't want, you're practicing them in the mind. And the more you practice something, the better you get at it. And so that's a big fallacy with a lot of diets you'll do, because you actually unintentionally end up making the problem worse by installing that binge eating behavior even more. So a lot of people don't realize that. So I hope that helps a little bit with that one. Feel free to ask any further questions. So next question is, how do I work out my daily calorie goal? So first of all, with this one, I wouldn't recommend working on daily calories because of the precision mindset it makes. And I've done a few videos on this in the last few weeks in terms of having a very precise thing to hit every day. If you can't do it, you end up not doing it, and it ends up making your diet very inconsistent. That's one of the things I would sort of say against calorie counting. And if you want like the method I use with my clients, I'll pop it down in the description below. Basically, I have a hand guide portion measuring size system, which I use with all my clients and get excellent results. So that's what I use, and it's down there. But if you really want to know, like, the best way to do it is take your body weight in pounds. So if it's in kilograms, multiply it by 2.2, but in pounds, and then multiply it by 11. And that will give you the rough estimate of calories that you will need per day to maintain your body weight. And then you just need to take a bit off that, so either 10 or 20%. So multiply that number by either 0.9 or 0.8 to get 10% off or 20% off. And then all you need to do is sort of follow that. And if you don't lose weight, you're still eating too much, or you're not doing enough movement in your day. And that's the problem, like, with it, because it's very precise. And if you are counting calories, you have to always put them in the app, and sometimes you can't do that. So the inconsistency is like when you can't do that and you think, oh, it's too difficult, I just won't bother today. Or yeah, I'm going out for a meal with friends, so I can't do it. Or I forgot to do it, or this is too complicated, I'm too stressed today. So that's why I would advise doing it the way that I do it. And that's the way I do it with my clients, and it works so much better. So I hope that helps with that question. So next question is Slimming World. I've been doing Slimming World for a while and lost a load of weight, but I have come to a standstill. So what do I do? So this is one of the reasons I would advise against doing Slimming World basically as a diet, because a lot of people will come to standstills and then they're not getting results, so they end up kind of just slipping back into old habits and put the weight back on, because so many people do Slimming World and then you check back in with them and they're back at the weights they were before, or even heavier, because of the way that they've been eating and the way it's kind of accidentally as well sometimes installed binge eating behaviors. And so like my advice would be not to do Slimming World, because obviously it's got to the point where it's not working for you anymore. And so the question is, does it work if you've lost weight and you stop losing weight? Because when you look at your whole journey, you have to look at the journey from start to end. You haven't got to the end yet because you haven't got to your goal weight. So if you were like to project to the future and say, does Slimming World work? We need to know what happens in the end. So a lot of people will say, oh yeah, it worked the first time, it all worked, but now it stopped working. Ask yourself the question, does that mean it did work? Because has it got you to your actual goal? Yes, it's probably helped you with a little bit, but at this stage through the journey, it's difficult to know the detriment it's given you, because you don't know the problems it's caused by dieting in that way. And it could have caused part of the problem of getting to this plateau, and especially with what you're eating, how you're eating, and maybe what you're restricting, what you're not including, those kind of things. And also just things like the time you've lost in terms of being able to eat in a proper way, learning proper skills, what I call proper skills around food, where you can include everything you do enjoy and not have to count things like sins, and be able to be a little bit more kind of whole with your diet and include things without worrying or thinking, is it worth that many sins? And yeah, again, it's difficult to answer this question, but if you want to speak to me about it, feel free. But the starting point would be with my hand-sized portion guide, which I mentioned below. That's how I always teach my clients to eat, and that's the best way. but obviously it comes into the emotional eating as well. So emotional eating is a very big part of dieting, because if you're going one way and you feel like you're being pushed back in the other way, you're never going to be going forward. So you always find it more difficult than it should be, and there's always going to be something pulling you back. It's a bit like pushing a big boulder up a hill. If you're pushing up a hill and it's always pushing back on you, then it's always going to be very difficult. It's always going to be a lot of energy. What you want is everything to flow nice and freely, so that boulder to be on flat ground or even downhill, so it kind of just rolls without having to put any much energy into it at all. So yeah, that would be my advice on that. And it all just comes down to a lot of diets work a little bit, and then people get stuck and end up going backwards because they get annoyed, bored, or just upset with the results, and either try something else, or it's a lot of effort to be doing it. So it's like, I'd rather just not do anything if I'm not getting results. And that's a really important point. A lot of people slip back because of that. It's that thing of, why am I doing a diet and putting all this effort in, not getting any results? I may as well just be eating how I was before. So yeah, really consider it in that way, and feel free to ask me any further questions. So next question is about consistency and emotional eating. So this is one of the biggest problems with dieting. So dieting is not really a fat loss issue, it's an emotional issue. It comes from up here. And so yeah, consistency is always going to be difficult if you're going to be pulled back in the opposite direction. So I mentioned about the boulder before, that analogy, you can think of it in terms of the devil analogy as well. So you're kind of planning to be really good, and then the devil comes out on your shoulder and whispers in your ear and sort of tells you, eat that thing that you said you weren't going to eat. And you can't get it to go away, and it keeps shouting louder and louder. And you can only get it to go away when you eat that thing. And so it's incredibly difficult, and it feels incredibly difficult. And that is because most people try and deal with emotional eating in their own way, which obviously doesn't work, because unless it goes away, then it hasn't worked. And you also see some people suggesting workarounds, which I think are not useful as well. So things like drinking some water, going for a walk, chewing some chewing gum, cleaning your teeth, getting rid of the food. That's not solving the issue, that's kind of just avoiding the issue. It's always going to be there. So emotional eating is not a difficult thing to solve, but it's not possible to kind of explain it on a video. That's why I work one-to-one with clients, and we do it over several weeks with training. And it happens very quickly to get rid of it. But again, it's not something that can be done generally on a video. I need to speak specifically to anyone I am helping with it. And the important thing to know is, it's not hard to get rid of. It's just, let's think of it as a skill. So it's something you can practice to do. And like I was saying before, with the willpower, most people accidentally are installing binge eating and emotional eating behaviors without realizing it, because of the way they think, the language they use, and misunderstanding of how willpower works, and also the terrible diets out there which don't understand it either, that are compounding the issue. So yeah, again, that's one that I can't help specifically with. That's the advice I give to you about it. Again, if you'd like to speak to me, feel free to let me know. Had great success with my clients with emotional eating, and again, it's something that happens very fast to get rid of when you do want to. But yeah, again, fat loss is more of an emotional problem rather than basically a physical eating problem. Because ask yourself, why am I doing emotional eating? Is usually because of one or two reasons. Sometimes boredom, sometimes to fill voids in your mind, to change the way you feel, to basically compensate for not feeling good enough, things like that. And so a lot of things need to be considered, but again, just to help you feel better, it's not like a difficult thing to solve once you do follow the right steps. So I hope that helps. So next question, I've been on a diet and not losing much, it's deflating me. So yeah, like a lot of empathy here. It's really frustrating, isn't it, when you are trying to put some effort in and you're not getting results. But the simple answer is, if you're not losing weight, you will not be in a calorie deficit. So to lose weight, you need to be eating fewer calories than your body needs. And so it's as simple as that. So it all comes down to basically looking at where you might be going wrong. So number one, are you being consistent? Is it 7 days a week that you are trying to be in a calorie deficit? Or are you being good on some days and then on, say, the weekend, eating more, which is quite a common pattern. And that links into a few things I mentioned in the video already about emotional eating and sort of restricting and missing out. So there's a lot of things to consider with a diet, and that's why I have a coaching program, because it's not like this is the tip, this is what you need to do. It's training someone, teaching someone how to change those things over a couple of months. And so, yeah, it's a difficult question to answer when people say, I'm not losing weight, what am I doing wrong? Because it's a very broad question, which could have a lot of different answers. But that's the general thing, like you're not going to be in a calorie deficit if you're not losing weight. And that's always going to be the answer. So I hope that helps. Next question is, I've tried everything and nothing works. So again, this is quite a common question I get. And so number one, everything. Obviously you haven't tried everything, but I'm assuming you've tried a lot of things. And what do you mean by doesn't work? So we have to kind of define what you mean by that. And I'm assuming you mean you haven't lost weight. But we have to kind of think about how have you tried things? What have you tried? Because most diets out there are the same. They just have a different name and a different way of doing the same thing. So if we think about most diets, it's changing something to be in a calorie deficit, be it counting points, counting calories, counting sins, fasting, cutting out carbs, cutting out sugar, cutting out fats, all those kind of things, and eating in certain ways, cutting out animal products for vegetarians, vegans. And so all that is doing is the same thing. It's trying to put you in a calorie deficit. But weight loss is more than just a calorie deficit, because that's the eating and the conscious part. We're missing out all the mental stuff. So stuff around emotional eating, stuff around motivation, stuff around negative emotions, stuff about limiting beliefs, having accountability, making sure you are being consistent. So there's a lot to it that most diets do miss out. So when you say you tried everything and nothing works, it's probably because you haven't tried everything. All the stuff you have tried is all like similar things, and you haven't actually, or most things haven't realized what they're missing and what actually it does take to lose weight long term and get good results. So that would be the answer for that one. Very easy, they're just not encompassing the right things. So I hope that one helps. So next question is, I don't have time for exercise and I don't seem to be consistent with it. So this is quite an easy one actually. So most people, they want to go like 100% and do everything perfect with exercise. But for most people, it's taking steps back and just being very simple, getting something to track your steps. So maybe something like a Fitbit to put on your arm, or even the step counter on your phone, and just trying to aim for 10,000 steps per day. But maybe to start with, do a day and see how many you usually do in your day, and then just increase it by a certain percentage or a certain amount the next day following, and being consistent with that and building up to get 10,000 plus steps per day. Because the main thing for calorie burning is just movement. So walking around is the simplest way to do that. So we can start to incorporate that into our daily lives more. So things like walking around your house, maybe when you're on the phone, walking around a bit more, maybe when you're waiting for the kettle, walking up and down the spot, microwave, same thing, and just trying to get more movement into your day, taking longer routes if you can, maybe if you are at work, taking a longer route to the toilet, or driving or parking a bit further away, incorporating a walk on your lunch hour, things like that, just to get more movement into the day. And this will give you the basic necessities for getting your 10,000 steps. And then it doesn't matter about the actual exercise part, that can come later. And so if we think about exercise and movement is just the burning calories part. Exercise is more the physical part of building your shape. So size and shape. So size comes from burning calories, which can be done by movement. That could be walking or running, or anything in between. And the shape comes from more resistance, like body weight or weighted exercise, which gives you that lean toned look. So I hope that one helps. So next question, I have lost 1 stone and 9 pounds and I've done really well. However, the weight loss has stalled and it's really getting me down. So a few things to answer this question. So number one, just understand that as you lose weight, your body will require fewer calories. So basically, as you do lose weight, maybe at your point now, that you need to reduce your calories a little bit more to be in a calorie deficit. So remember always, to be losing weight, you need to be eating fewer calories than your body needs. Now, the bit about basically feeling down, of course, it sounds like two things. So you're putting a lot of effort in and you're not getting results. So it's that, oh, what is the point kind of thing. And a lot of diets are like this because a lot of people are not enjoying what they're doing and they're really like pushing through and using their willpower. And the problem with that is when you do reach your goal weight, you're like so relieved, you stop doing what you were doing and go back to how you were eating before, which is why a lot of people yo-yo diet. And so I got an inkling it's probably the wrong thing you were doing because of that. And also the other thing I wanted to say about that is in terms of feeling down about not doing very well anymore, that comes back to, like you're obviously trying by yourself and it comes back to what am I doing wrong? What does that say about me? Why am I not achieving anything? What's wrong with me? Kind of thing. So it comes back to the feelings of I'm not good enough, and things like that. And just understand that you don't have to be great at everything. Just because it's food and diet doesn't mean you have to be able to do it by yourself. Like, for example, if your car breaks down, if your car has a problem, you take it to a mechanic. You shouldn't be expected to be able to fix that. Same thing with the body. When you're struggling to lose weight, it's not necessarily going to be saying anything about you if you can't fix yourself. So just keep that in mind as well. So I hope that helps. So final question is, what's the best way to stop being unhealthy? And I like to answer this question in a bit of a different way to what you might have thought of or heard or considered before. So if we think about unhealth and disease being unhealthy, we should be eating in a way to avoid disease. But this is the basic kind of necessity of eating to the basic standard. The problem with today's society is not enough people, most people, a lot of people are not even eating to this level. So it should be a basic requirement first to eat in a certain way to avoid disease, to avoid being unhealthy. And then we kind of have the opposite end of the scale, eating to optimize your health. So this is going beyond, let's say, normal things to eat in a way to get better than the normal baseline. So this is kind of following certain research and things where certain things, eating certain foods or supplements have been proven to actually have an added benefit. So I'll pop a little sort of diagram on the screen what I mean by this. So starting with the disease side, eating to a certain level, and then kind of in the middle, normal, where you're functioning normally and just living normally and kind of just, okay. And then we got the complete opposite side of eat to be healthy. So this is optimizing to feel great and to perform to your best and to be above average. And so it's a very different thing to eat to not be unhealthy, to avoid disease, than to be actually sort of optimizing your health. And so we have to consider, when you are trying to avoid disease, just the basic things. Are you doing all those basic things? So starting with the level one of, are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? And then, are you eating enough food? Are you eating enough of all the basic macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbohydrates? Are you eating enough fruits and vegetables to get your vitamins and minerals? As a basic requirement. And so just nourishing your body and being normal. And then we move into kind of just being okay, eating enough of this stuff. And that's in inverted commas, what people mostly call healthy. But then we have optimizing your health. And what else can you do to go beyond normal? And so you can feel even better, live longer, live healthier, have more energy. And that is including things that you might not have considered before, or things that might not be naturally available in your area. So let's say thousands of years ago, someone could live and be okay, but introducing a certain food that might not have been available, let's say someone that lived in the middle of the country, and then they had some seafood, some fish or something, which has different nutrients in, it could have benefited them more. And so that's why we consider things like certain vitamins or minerals that you might not be getting enough of, or omega-3, things like that. A lot of people don't go outside enough, or they're not getting enough vitamin D, things like that. Some foods today are depleted of nutrients, so they're not as rich as you expect in certain nutrients. So optimizing everything as much as possible. And there's a lot more to this. And of course, exercise as well, training and exercising in a certain way to be stronger, fitter and faster. And so, yeah, this is quite a big thing to go into, but as a basic level, most people are not doing the not being unhealthy part, the disease part. So it's getting into okay and normal first, and then moving into optimizing your health if you want to, because it takes time and effort. But of course, there's the huge benefits of feeling amazing and living a richer, longer life. So guys, that is it for today. That is the video done. I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below if you benefited from this video, and also comment down below if you have any further questions or anything that popped into your mind while I was talking about these things. And so for now, like and also subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.